Hi Anurag,
Hello.
welcome to Sudeep Audio's channel.
I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for having me. It's really
Sure,
great.
you've been buying quite a lot of stuff from us. And thank you for that.
Yep.
Anurag, your sister Shilpa is a very well-known singer in
Yeah.
Bollywood, and you're a very well-known pianist
I don't know about that, but yeah, probably.
in the independent music
The independent
circuit.
scene, probably.
Yeah. So before we get her on the channel, we'll like to hear your part of the journey.
We both were in the same household. Dad was like a big influencer. He's Hindustani classically trained, had MA in Hindustani class. Not that it meant anything for him, the degree and stuff, but he always wanted to like push us in that direction, at least like we get like achievement sort of thing, like not really like for him achievement was more diverse. It wasn't like yeah we're just famous and stuff. For him it was like actually doing the right thing and like having the right approach to music, and like he was kind of a philosopher that way. So, and the main basis of all of that was discipline for him. So he used to make sure that both of us were grilled at all points of time, working really hard, whatever we want to do. So it began with my dad starting to teach Shilpa how to sing, and she caught on. There were some struggles, obviously, because teacher and student living in the same house with the same like father-daughter relationship, it's really hard. And I know that I've seen it a bunch of times. It can get quite like difficult, but I mean they still had a very complex, but like they really loved each other, so it was great. So my dad wanted me to get into that as well, and slowly got into that, and I took to keyboard before I took to piano. I mean, took to piano later.
So you grew up in Jamshedpur, right?
Yeah.
So in a small town, isn't it like difficult to find first of all keyboards in when we were growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about 96, 95.
Right.
So yeah, but Kolkata was fairly close.
Okay.
And luckily, because of that, even the culture sort of is kind of like as kids in Jamshedpur, which is like you are kind of pushed towards. So there used to be this cultural spot, where people used to come learn how to dance, learn how to sing. A sort of the Bengali culture is quite rich there, like Robindra Sangeet and everything. So,
But there's not so much of a Bollywood influence
no,
as compared to
I
Bombay.
mean now it's changed a lot, but back in the day, not so much. It was mainly all this like other old music that everyone was kind of digging at that point of time.
So you did find a teacher for yourself.
I found a violin. He was primarily a violin teacher, so he taught me how to read stuff, but he couldn't teach me piano technique because he was not that adept at playing the piano. He could play the piano. I mean,
But you didn't choose any other instrument?
I mean, my dad wanted me to learn sitar, but that never happened because by that time I'd already moved on to. I tried tabla, didn't work out. I used to play guitar for a bit for some school rock bands. Yeah, bunch. I mean, stuff like that. But like I always knew that the keys were my thing, even as a kid. So yeah, I mean, that way it was kind of interesting to keep on playing keys.
Correct. For most kids, Anurag, learning keyboards at 7, 9, 10, it's like a hobby. It's like I'm studying, and in the evening, so that I don't watch TV, I'll do this. So in your case, how did that kind of come into your life?
It was very different for me because I remember as a kid, I once wrote an essay at school on hobbies, and I wrote about music. And I scored like a 10 on 10. I came back home super happy, showed it to my dad. My dad looks at it and he's like, okay, I think you should stop music now because you're calling it a hobby apparently, and it's not cool, doesn't fly. It was completely the opposite. He said, if you think of this as a hobby, just stop. This is important, this is real, this has to be taken seriously. So he was completely from the other side of the spectrum. He was like, so there was clubs. We never went to watch movies as kids. Like in some movies we caught here and there. Video games time was like super like limited. Everything was like rationed, and everything was directed to, but not in a very forcible way. It was quite nice. So my dad would sit in the evening, play his cassettes of Amir Khan Saab, and used to make us listen to it. Shilpa especially enjoyed that. With me, he found it difficult to accept Mozart and Bach and all, but he still used to try and listen to it with me. And my mom was always supportive about all of that.
So
Shilpa.
you felt attracted, sorry, to Western.
For me, for me, polyphony was the thing. The moment so the first exposure I had was listening to two sounds being made at the same time, which are kind of unrelated. So generally, the most common format, which is like song format, what we call, is like there's a melody on the right hand and you play chords on the left hand, and that's about it. Or you just have melody, and you sing it and you play the exact same melody, which is what I grew up listening to. But the first time I heard Bach was when I heard a melody and another melody, and both of them were interacting and doing some weird stuff and then going away from each other and coming back. And that for me was like, suddenly the whole ambidexterity of playing piano suddenly started making sense, where, why would I play piano if I can play melody on both hands, or just play melody and play chords? Now there was an actual purpose, for having a piano, for playing different things with both hands and kind of creating harmony through that. I mean, when people talk about harmony, it's always like chords, but for me it wasn't like that. For me, harmony is like actual, like finding a correlation between the melody and something else happening in the background. So I obviously got super attracted to this whole sound that Western classical music had, which for me was complex, diverse, and at the same time quite sweet.
So do friends come and ask you, "Oh, tune bajana, ye tune bajana"?
Yeah. So as a kid, I would happily comply. Luckily, because at least in Jamshedpur, there was the request that used to come in was never like, play that song from that Bollywood song or that song from. It used to always be like, dude, do you know that Nirvana tune? Do you know that Metallica tune? Can we jam on that? And it was cool. At that time, I just picked up the guitar, so I enjoyed playing it. Like, I learned the solo on Sultans of Swing from Dire Straits without knowing a single note that I'm playing. So I used to just play the frets, like, whatever used to come below my fingers, and I knew the solo by rote, but I didn't know what note I was playing. It was fun because it was always music that I liked to listen to, and my friends were also kind of listening to the same music, which by the time I entered my teenage years was more like heavy metal, going into like completely like super metal sort of like genres, like black metal and speed metal and blah blah blah. It's changed a lot, but we were all kind of in sync most of the time, so there were phases, obviously, I used to listen to pop when I was younger. I'd listen to pop, and then like some other stuff, and eventually went into like really hardcore music, but it was always in sync, so I would actually enjoy that. I didn't have a problem with that at all.
When did the move to Bombay happen, and when was it that you really felt confident enough that music will be my full-time profession?
Yeah. So Bombay happened around around the same time I began college at Xavier's, which was 2007. I was 18. So I just moved there. I just wanted to see what the scene is like, and at that point of time I wanted to be a pianist. I was very scared because I knew the levels were really high in Bombay. Coming from a small town, it was like, there was obviously a lot of pressure. In fact, the first teacher I ever met in Bombay said I should quit. It was straight. It was super hard, and she just said it like up front. First thing she ever said to me was, I think it's not for you, you should just stop. And it was kind of hard to listen to that, but she took me on, and then I realized I don't want to continue. It's just like a long story. Anyway, then I went to another teacher, and I went there to study classical music, and he's the first guy who sort of showed me some improvisation, and I realized I don't know that much about theory and just in general, like about theory and stuff. So I started moving more towards the theoretical understanding of what sound is, and what, just understanding theory basically, not anything to do with improvising, anything to do with jazz. Just I felt that there was a lot of holes in my education, because it was in Jamshedpur at the start. Then I used to go fortnightly to Kolkata to study with a guy there, and then I didn't basically do piano exams for like about 4 years. So when I moved here, there was a big hole, which I felt like, I didn't know a lot of stuff, and so I had to sort of slowly work on it. Then
But
so
you didn't give up.
I
Didn't feel dejected.
I mean, obviously there is a sense of like you feel scared. I mean, I was 18 and I just came here on a hunch, honestly. At that point in time, it was a hunch. It was nothing else. It wasn't like I was playing, I was a child prodigy or something. It was just a hunch, like I wanted to do music. It's a difficult hunch to have, right? And to hear that first up, luckily, I mean, Shilpa was there with me. So she was actually there when this woman said this to me, and Shilpa was like, you shouldn't take that seriously. And she was obviously faced a lot of rejection. I mean, she was in Bombay for a while. She has had to face, all of us face rejection in Bombay, especially in the whole Bollywood scene. It's hard. So she asked me to just chill out and sort of have a steady mind and just go through it and just go through the cycles, and everything would be okay. And I was like, yeah, it's took a while for me to get over it. Obviously, it's not something you'd expect to hear from anyone. And yeah, so then I eventually got back on it, and I went to another classical teacher and started with her, and it was difficult, but she was super Roshan Chawna in Grant Road. She was super nice, and I was learning with Benny De Silva in he's in Andheri. So and the more you learn, the more comfortable. I mean, the more I learned, the more comfortable I got. I eventually did a few exams. At that point in time, I really wanted to do exams because I wanted not for the certification, but I wanted to do really diverse things. Like I did trio piano, which was 6 hands on a piano, then like a jazz piano exam, a rock school piano exam, a lot of theory. So basically, trying to do. I mean, exams was just like a nice goal at the end, like a deadline. But the whole purpose of learning music was still quite pure. Like it's like, oh, I want to understand how this is and why am I playing this and how does this sound like this and blah blah.
Speaking of exams, Anurag,
Yeah.
A lot of us, today's parents and all, send their children to music school.
Yeah.
As one more, I would say degree, but whatever you call it, a certificate.
It becomes a very achievement based thing.
That's the purpose. That my daughter or son stood first
I'll give you the final purpose, man. The final purpose is like, it's just another certificate to add to your file when you want to go abroad and study. Like, because in India, if you're going to IIT, let's say, or BITS Pilani or whatever, they don't care if you have a piano certificate, right? Like, it doesn't matter to them. That probably duck you a few points. What were you doing? Learning piano all that time. Anyway, it's mainly for the colleges abroad that these guys, I mean, that's their purpose.
But is that a good thing to?
I mean,
if you're studying music abroad, then
if you're which mostly is not true in these cases, which mostly is not true. If that's the case, then it's great, man. Do it. It's great. You want to learn music because you want to go abroad and sort of spread your wings and look for more
then
things.
That's a good thing to.
Yeah, it's a great thing.
But not as a additional.
But it becomes like that. The thing is, it becomes like that. It's a nice extra activity that you can put on your resume, and it works. It works. I mean, if I have to be very honest, from like a business point of view, it works. Because that's how all the teachers in Bombay are working right now. Because we have this thing that is okay, by the time they're 18, they should finish grade 8. That's, and you begin. So what the parent, because this is the thing. There's a quantify. I mean, you are quantifying it for the parents. For the parents and for the kid at some level. So they know that they have a goal. The parents also know that there is a goal. So but in the process, some kids actually start enjoying the music, which is a positive. Sometimes they don't, which is a percentage of a large percentage.
You spoke of quantifying. Now we were discussing earlier that Indians like to quantify everything.
That's always the
So,
case.
do you get asked questions like, how fast can you play?
Yeah. We all know the fact about the fastest pianist in India and fastest pianist in the world, and this whole thing of like keeping a BPM counter like a metronome on and just playing and making it look like that's an achievement. It is an achievement. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It's just that you don't know where to go from there. Like, I mean, it's great that you can do it. Like, it's obviously a acquirement of a skill.
No, but if somebody comes and tells you, hey, play at 180, 180.
Yeah, so then that's where it becomes weird, right? 180 watt. If it's 180 quavers, that's 90 crotchets, which is a slow tempo or a medium tempo. If it's 180 minims, then it's a almost unplayable tempo. What is the intensity you're talking about? This is the thing that scares me a little bit about music, or people who know all these terms, like some guys just come and like, I'm into this microtonal harmony and this and that. I'm like, great dude, but can you just hack normal harmony first and just play a little bit for me? And these guys mostly can't, and they talk about, some guys come and all they want to talk about is, dude, I did this metric modulation and this and that. And I'm like, great, but can you hold like a 4/4 groove? And so this whole to quantify something complex, like they just quantify it. And Indians have a habit of, I mean, I've done it at a younger age. I used to keep a metronome and be like, I can play it at this tempo. But at some time, luckily, I always met people, and luckily I kept my brain open also to people who said, yeah, that's great, but have you ever heard a recording of yourself and the sound that you're creating just does not sound musical at all? And that sort of, I mean, it makes you like step back and think about it, right? Because a lot of people don't. A lot of people are adamant and say, yeah, but I'm still playing at that tempo, so it's great. A lot of people will, and it shows your personality as a person, and that will show in your music eventually. That when you start playing in a certain way, and it shows how mechanical you are, or how much heart and soul you got. I mean, I also see a lot of improvisers at, not just here. I'm not talking about just here. I've seen this in Paris, in jam sessions. Like guys coming and you can see they've prepared it from top to bottom. So the rhythm section is playing something completely different. They're not listening to the rhythm section. It's like, I'm here to play, and I've seen it here also, where guys just come and they're at the session, at the gig, and they're just, it's like something is preconceived in their head. You're not listening to the rhythm section, you're not, and this whole facade of pushing yourself to the to the forefront, it's like almost like an insecurity of sorts inside you as a person. So when you start playing it, that whole insecurity starts coming. You can see it. It's like pounding again and again and again.
So as a musician, do you feel that, or do you think the audience can also realize that?
I mean, it depends on how learned the audience is, obviously.
But as a musician, you can make out that this guy is trying to show his or her skills a little.
I mean, it's kind of obvious. It doesn't take a long time for you to catch on when someone plays like that. When someone plays from heart, you can say they're trying to be a team player.
But playing every day, usually the same song list or same set.
Then it becomes, then that's a set. I'm not talking about a set. I'm talking about something where it's improvised music in some level. So so this whole quantification of like notes and how fast can I play and and without a complete understanding of sound is kind of scary, and I face that quite a lot. So I mean, I've been drawn in, to be very honest. I have also sometimes you're playing a gig and the other guy is going for it, and you feel like, oh, I'm falling behind. You go for it, and like at the end of like 2 minutes, it's like a battle, and it sounds, and the person listening to it doesn't really. I mean, the enjoyment goes away, right? Because you're not making music at that point of time. You're really like pushing each other's boundaries, not in a nice way,
In one of our videos with Floyd Fernandez, he said that if you're starting off in this line, today it's become Bollywood. Though your own sister is a Bollywood singer, you haven't kind of really ventured out into Bollywood, but you were doing pretty well as an independent musician, playing at jazz festivals or piano day that Louis Banks just curated, etc. etc.
Yeah.
You have your own band also. So could you shed some more light on that? Because we don't want the viewers to feel that you cannot survive in this industry.
See, there is. I'm not saying. I mean, Floyd obviously has some good points. I'm not denying that at all. Like, it's what he says, what he feels, is coming from a very real place, and it's correct. Again, it depends on how much you can do. Like, for some guys, they want to be part of the industry just a little bit, use the money, use the fame, use the traction, and pull out and start putting it into indie music. That's great. Like, I think that's the best strategy you can have as a surviving musician in Bombay, because the other end means a lot of sacrifice. When you go into just saying that, oh, I want to be an indie musician and just an indie musician, man, you gotta have some insane backing from your parents and like society in general to pull off something like that. It's hard. It's so hard because you have to consistently be part of the scene. You have to make money. You have to be available. Sometimes kind of look hipster, which is all cool. We all play along with this whole scenario, and it's great. Like, I'm not complaining at all. But the nice thing to do is to have balance between the two, right? Having said that, I've seen a lot of guys who just thought they would be able to balance and sort of completely lost out. Once the money starts coming in, it's just like, boom, they've got like a car and uska EMI, and then boom, like, so there is obviously what Floyd said is very legit. Like, he's himself has seen a lot of people sink into that hole, and there's nothing wrong with what he's saying. It's legit. At the same time, if you can't lose yourself, now that requires a lot of patience, discipline, a lot of trust in yourself, and always knowing yourself, which I think is more a person quality. It's not something that can be taught or anything. It's just like when you play a gig and if it's a gig, it's a commercial gig. I won't say a Bollywood gig, but a commercial gig. And like 10 people come up to you and say, man, you were flying today and you were so good, and there are two ways to go from that. Like, do you just start believing that, or do you stop and say, thank you, very nice of you, but you go back home and work on the real stuff, you go back home and work on the stuff that actually ignites you, we all as musicians start playing because we like music. None of us, I mean, if you began playing music with the agenda that someday I'll be famous and I'll be on stage and people will be throwing like flowers at me from the crowd and stuff like that, if that was your agenda and you achieved it, kudos, like, great. But most of us who began playing music began for very pure reasons. Like, for me, it was like just being able to play a piece nicely, just having the right sound, being secure, with your music. And if that was your agenda and you kind of compromise just a little bit of that to make sure your money is sorted so you don't have to worry about rent, it's just basically that, you can't focus on your sound on the piano if you don't have money for rent. That's just basic maths. Like, all of us know this. And no matter how much you say you want to be that guy, I'll carry everything, you can't. Like, this place will suck you dry in 3 months. And I know that. And that's why I said what Floyd said is very legit. He's actually looking out for the young guys who are just wanting to take this leap. It's scary.
True.
At the same time, the balance. It's just balance. You need to find the balance.